I know some of you are going to roll your eyes, but it's been almost half a year since my last HSTV-L video. I think that's fair. Anyway, no. This video isn't going to be calling Gaijin incompetent. Sure, I could have made a video talking about the recent BR changes as a whole, but that's not very interesting. I like videos where I run tests, mess with the game, and do direct comparisons. So I decided to focus on the HSTV-L. It also gives me a chance to talk about new research. If you have no idea what's going on, Gaijin recently did another round of BR changes. Along with the IPM1, the HSTV-L was moved up to 10.7. This struck me as a little odd, since when it was moved to 10.3, I think most people agreed that was fine. My immediate thought was that it really had nothing to do with its own performance, more so the performance of vehicles it's paired with. Ever since getting M900, the IPM1 has been incredibly good, and US top tier win rates have steadily risen, to the point they're about 60%. That is until you get to around 10.7, but we'll get back to that later. Excluding the ADATs and M3A3, the HSTV-L is the lowest stats of any top tier US vehicle. It is worth noting, these figures are from Thunderskill, so they're not incredibly accurate, but they're all we have to go off of. But being the lowest doesn't mean it's outright bad. It could be that US tanks are just really strong, and the HSTV-L is just less strong. In order to test that, I decided to run a quick experiment. The HSTV-L is low damage and low penetration, but at 1 round every second and a half, it fires quickly. My thinking is that it's better to have a gun with more penetration and more damage, but a slower reload rate. So I decided to compare it to another US light tank, the XM8. The XM8 isn't exactly known for damage, but even C76 is better than the XM885. I up-tiered it to 10.7, taking it in a lineup with the HSTV-L. To make sure there wasn't any first spawn advantage, I would alternate between spawning each tank first. I would also compare it to similar vehicles, namely the 2S25M and automatic. The goal was to reach 20 kills, then take the KD ratio. I know 20 kills isn't a lot, but I was short on time. Here are the results. As you can see, the HSTV-L and XM8 are pretty close, but the XM8 barely comes ahead. Sure enough, even though the XM8 lacks penetration at 10.7, it had enough to consistently damage weak spots. And because of the higher damage, those hits were meaningful. I think another factor is the engine. The XM8 is a much quieter diesel engine, while the HSTV-L is a turbine. The turbine's so loud, you can use it to pinpoint its location. It's like if you're trying to play hide and seek, but you had an air horn taped to your belt. The Sprut took things a bit further. It has quite a bit of penetration, enough that you really don't have to aim that much. And of course, it's a Russian 125, so it hits like a truck. For me though, the biggest factor was the sight. It has 3rd gen thermals, so it's easy to spot targets. The automatic is probably a bit surprising the most. Compared to the HSTV-L, it has slightly more pen and fires a lot faster, but it's also huge, slower, and has ammo everywhere. It also has limited sabot. Because of this, people think it performs worse against tanks. In my experience, it was the opposite. The breach ate most shots to the turret, since it's the size of Rhode Island. It may not be very fast, but again, diesel. I could sneak about just fine. It fires fast enough that its low damage doesn't really matter. Even if your first or second shot whiffs, the enemy still can't react in time. It's not the same story with the HSTV-L. A second and a half seems short, but for a top tier MBT, that's plenty of time to react. So as a typical light tank, the HSTV-L isn't great, even being outperformed by a 9.3 vehicle. But what can be done? Should anything be done? As mentioned earlier, US top tier win rates start out pretty high, but get lower as you approach 11.0. So Gaijin probably saw the high win rates of the HSTV-L and IPM1 and thought, hey, we could equalize things a bit here. I actually think it'd be fine to keep it at 10.7, or even to move it to 11.0, under one condition, that its ammo and gun are corrected. This is how XM885 is modeled. Funnily enough, not a single facet is correct. Because of this, XM885 is missing over a quarter of its penetration. If you did the same to M829A2, it would pen way less than the M829. Here's how it should be modeled. These are all supported by multiple sources, or calculated using sourced figures. Take the length for example. There is no official figure, but the round filled the entire case, and the case is 406mm long. We also know that for penetration, it was equal to M774, so that's about what the length should be. Here are the penetration figures. If these were fixed, it would make weak spots much more consistent. And for the gun, dropping the reload to 1 second would help a lot. For anti-tank, I think that would make it slightly better than the automatic, but that's kind of the point. The automatic is anti-air, not a light tank. Some people have called for the Delta 3 or Delta 6 rounds, which would essentially give it M833, but I think that would be too much. Anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed the video, and I'll see you on the next one.